Thank you for having me here. I'm so honored to share my experience back in Chicago with some of my Chinese students here. And each one has 50 minutes, right? So I will try as much as I can to cover what I think I need to cover. Okay. So before that, I want to give some little background about myself. When I started with this ministry. Back in 1995, so I was studying at the Theological Union in Hyde Park in Chicago. And I was invited by a Lutheran pastor. It's an Augustine parish. It's a Lutheran congregation there. So because they find a number of Chinese students, around the campus. So they asked me whether I'm interested in doing some kind of Chinese ministry for those students. I have no excuse to refuse. That's the invitation. I said, sure, of course. So I started the campus ministry at the Lutheran Church, not in the Catholic Church, though. Okay, that's a very interesting one. Even at that time, some priest was teaching me because I was somehow joining the Lutheran Church there. So I go there like every weekend and meeting with the parishioners and trying to have some lectures on the Chinese culture, whatever, and then trying to attract the Chinese students. So I started there for about 1 year, and then I switched, started checking with Newman Center in University of Chicago and started a Bible study over there. And for about 10 years, back and forth. It was a very interesting experience for me. And with some priests, even one Jesus priest actually, and help, and we started the ministry with some SVD, Divine Word missionaries as well. So at that time, most of the students are like graduate school students, and more specific, most of them are like PhD students. So they spend a much longer time at campus, normally 5 years, some even 7 years over there. So we know them basically from beginning to the end, of their academic years in the campus. After about 10 years, starting in 2010, I started a ministry at the Loyola University, run by Jesuit in Chicago. Was very, unintentional, because I even didn't, think that I would go to Loyola there. And then, because I have a number of friends who are Chinese students. One time I got an email, and the one lady, she was like a student president, something, student body over there. So she asked me, I said, Paul, do you like to give some talks on the church, in the Catholic Church? I said, sure, why not? So I did. So initially, I simply submit the topics, what is Catholic Church? Who is Jesus? What's the difference between Catholic Church with other denominations? And also, what's the Jesuit? Because we are in the Jesuit school, and who is the Loyola of Ignatius? So I gave the topic to them. It's quite interesting, and then they are going to select which one they want to listen to. So we went to I think about last 2 or 3 years like that. We do that like every twice a month during the school years. The first Friday and the third Friday evening, so for about 90 minutes. At the beginning, we went through the Catholic Church, faith, of course, and the American culture, and the Christian influence to the American society. And even we have one lecture on St. Ignatius of Loyola. And also I remember we have one Mother Teresa of Calcutta, So they are very interested in those topics. So I kept reminding them, I said, I'm not trying to convert you to Christian, but since you are in the United States, you need to learn some American culture. And Christianity has a big impact in the Western culture, especially in US. You need to know at least about what is Christian, what their in history impact in this society, why we had like such democracy in the United States, so special. The Christianity play a very important role in who we are in the United States. So that's from the beginning. I said that if you are really want to join, of course. That's why we have a number of students year after year. If they are interested in the Catholic Church, we send them to St. Therese, which is our Chinese parish. They will go through RCIA program there. For the last 10 years, we have maybe a dozen of them became a Catholic. Unfortunately, the number of students, I have to tell you that, number of students went to our Bible study programs. They didn't join Catholic Church, but other denominations. It's quite interesting. And I'm happy for them as well. I'm not, I said, if you know Jesus, that's more than enough. My goal is to simply plant a seed to you, regarding whether you choose which church you want to join, which church you feel comfortable. I have no issue at all. We still have good friendship even today. Okay. Of course, for our Bible study, we have first Friday and third Friday. We always start with food. We are Chinese. That's like Mexican. They love food. We always prepare food, and after dinner, and then we start Bible study for about 90 minutes. We have prayers, and we have we especially intentionally invite all the students to participate in prayer, leading prayers even. By the way, very, very few are Christians. I think even rare Catholic students there. Most of them are non-believers, but that's fine. We invite them. They are very happy after to join our prayers because for them they have never such has experience like a spiritual praying, this kind of activities in their life. This is very good, and we often got quite positive feedback from the students. And, it's quite interesting. That's the background that I from the University of Chicago, and then back to Loyola until last year. Because of the pandemic, we somehow not able to do face-to-face, but we started Bible study via Zoom for the whole year last year. Even last week we still have one, but I still do not feel this, the same as before anymore, because especially with the students, physical contact still is more important than we are online. Because I feel that because I'm an old person, I lost the kind of connection on Zoom instead of sitting in the classroom, have enjoy Chinese food, have very good conversations. That's so different, for me. I want to share something else now. I came to the United States 30 years ago. At that time, if I walk on the street, I see some Chinese, I'm so excited. I always like trying to stop them and try to talk to them in Chinese because so rare. Especially, the first place I went was Iowa. I saw all the cows, pigs, rather than people there. And if I see some Chinese faces, even Asian faces, I was so excited. But nowadays, things changed. Now, if you walk in New York, Chicago, any place in California, even Seattle, you very often you can hear some people speaking Chinese over there. So that's the big difference within the last 30 years, I feel. Where, for example, I went to DePaul University for the computer science program. We have 800 students at that time, okay, about 25 years ago. 800 students studying computer science at that time in the computer department at DePaul. basically majority of them are Chinese, and the rest are Indians. So that's the phenomenon, I'm facing. Like, for example, like in UIUC, last year I went to the campus there. I asked how many international students do we have. They said about maybe 7,000, something like that. I said, how many Chinese? I said, they said about half Chinese. I went to Purdue University, where they have like a Newman Center run by Dominican priests, whom they are friends of mine. So I visited them. I asked them how many Chinese students they have. They have about 7,000 Chinese students in different campuses. That gave me like I'm not surprised, but at the same time, I almost jumped to the conclusion that we need ministers in the campuses. We need Catholic ministers in the campuses. I give a perfect example. For example, we have occasionally when we have a Bible study at Loyola University, a pastor, okay, I don't know which denomination they come from, but there is a Chinese pastor occasionally join to our Bible study as well. I asked, we have a good conversation. I always welcome him to join. But after later on, I learned he's a full-time working at Loyola University. Keep in mind, Loyola is a Catholic university, but we have full-time, like a non-Catholic minister working at the campus, serving in particular for the Chinese students. But we don't have such a luxury to have a Chinese minister at the Catholic in Loyola University. I think that is something as a Catholic we need to reflect upon. Okay. That's why I always try to compare what we do and what the other Christian denominations do. I always use the example, in some maybe too young for that, but in 1989, we have about 21 Chinese students who became most wanted students during the Chinese student movement there. And the majority of them actually, eventually, after whatever the persecution, the prison time, eventually all came. I think 2/3 of them came to the United States, like Wang, Kai-Chi, Chai-Ling, etc., etc. Later on, I learned about 7 or 8 out of 21 students became Christian. And 3 of them became pastors, okay? And they are Zhang Boli, Yuan Zhiming, and Xiong Yang. 3 became pastors, belong to any other Christian denominations. I always wonder, how come such students become a Jesuit out of the 21 students? That's I always wonder, So that's somehow I have to reflect on what we did, why they're not joined to Catholic Church, but all of them joined to other Christian denominations. I think that make me think, and I would like to invite all of us to think, why? Because we're Catholic Church too big, we don't need them, or because something else? I'm still wondering and keep reflecting what's the reason behind, okay? The last point I want to share, maybe give me 2 minutes maybe. I would like to talk about the challenges I'm facing, okay? The first challenge I feel is the age change. In about 30 years ago, majority of students are graduate students, PhD in particular. And then later on, I noticed, majority of students, especially at Loyola University, they are master's degree students, like graduate school students. But nowadays, it's different. Majority of the Chinese students at the campus are college, not the graduate school anymore, okay? So therefore, the challenge is the age change, and also the time spent at the campus are shortened. So in the past, we can make a good friends. Even today, we have very good, close relationship with a number of students back in University of Chicago. But nowadays, because of age, because the time they spend at campus is shortened, it's not that easy to make friendship with them. Okay. The second challenge I feel, for me at least, because of technology. Even though physically they are in the United States, their mind is not in the United States, I tell you. They follow all the movie stars back in China. They enjoy all the Chinese food in the United States. They speak their Chinese language because they can survive without knowing the American culture, except academic. Not like a past. Like 20 years ago, when we organized a Bible study, when we prepared some Chinese food, they were so happy. Nowadays, it's different. For example, when I tried to, I said, oh, let's talk to my wife. I said, oh, let us have some Japanese food. So I normally, because we have WeChat group, I normally text those Chinese students. I said, hey, give me some recommendations. Which Japanese food are good? Which restaurants are good? A better one. So they can give me a list of the restaurants. But when we were students 30 years ago, we have no such luxury because we have no money. Okay, so that's so different. Technology different because they living in the new culture, new technology, and they communicate with their friends back in China much more than what we did. Therefore, they can survive without knowing those American culture, not like in the past anymore. So that for me is a big challenge. I think the last challenge I want to mention is, I'm a lay person. I do not belong to any organizations, even though I'm a parishioner from St. Therese. I have no legal relationship, like an employment relationship there. It's simply from I work during the weekend for the church. I feel that's a call from God. Okay, I have no organization that I need to report to. But I do feel that I need the support from the Catholic Church, especially for the leadership level. And thank you, Father Michael, for keeping supporting us and keep, somehow give me the encouragement. But besides Father Michael, very few Catholic authorities, I mean, even my pastors, they rarely ask, any help that you need. Very rare. That's why I think, for me, that's my personal challenge. I think I need not financial support. I don't need the financial support, but I do need like emotional or even spiritual, even psychological, this kind of support I need for this ministry. Sometimes I do feel that I burn out. Sometimes, sometimes I love to talk to the people, but thank God I have a number of like Chinese, like seminarian or sisters or brothers studying at the universities. So I often talk to them and they give me a big help. That's a good piece. But I do feel that we lack, I think I personally need some kind of support from the authority, from the Catholic Church.